Okay, so I just got my first taste of how quickly tech news kind of moves, and yeah, I'm not gonna sit on this one. We're making a video today about the Galaxy Fold, and it's coming out today. So let's get right into it. So I literally spent 45 minutes yesterday recording a video for next week that was going to be my tech review, or sort of my thoughts, and it was going to be a tech video talking about the Galaxy Fold, because I have some issues with the philosophy behind this phone. I have some issues with the philosophy behind Samsung's development team versus their marketing team, but before I could even get that video edited and posted and scheduled for next week, this started happening. Yes, so the Galaxy Fold is starting to have some issues, and I really don't want to come at this like a hater of Samsung. I don't hate Samsung. Let me put that out there right now. I don't hate Samsung. In fact, before I got my iPhone and before I switched to using mostly Apple products, before all of that, I did use Samsung phones. I had a Galaxy S3. That was my first real smartphone. Before that, I was using a Huawei Tap. Shout out to anybody who was on T-Mobile back in 2008 using the Tap. That'd be me. Anyway, I don't hate Samsung. I think what they do with their phones is very innovative, and I've used the Google Pixel, and if the Google Pixel is how Android is supposed to be, I'm glad Samsung like rips it apart and adds their own skin to it, because I think that it's a perfectly reasonable set of features on a perfectly reasonable phone at a sort of high price, but for what you get, I'm okay with it. 3 cameras on the new S10, the 2 cameras on the front, one for depth and one for like actually a camera. It's pretty good. The edge-to-edge display, the floating notch. I mean, yeah, that kind of gets into, well, I'll talk about the first issue I have with Samsung and what's kind of come about more so now that the Fold is out, but was an issue I've had previously. Samsung's marketing team needs to some degree, talk with their engineering team to make sure that one doesn't step on the feet of the other. Let me explain. So the Galaxy S10 comes out. It's a great phone, and they put the camera in a little hole up in the corner, and that's neat. It makes it look a lot more futuristic. It makes it feel a lot more edge to edge, even though there's still a little bit of a chin at the bottom, but that's, you know, there's limits to technology in that regard. But it's fine. It looks good. But I can almost guarantee that one of the big reasons why they didn't use a notch was in no small part due to their ingenious ad campaign. Hear me out on this. If they had put a notch on the Galaxy S10, from a technological standpoint, they could have continued using their iris scanner. They could have put probably 2 cameras on the front instead of just a depth sensor and a camera. They probably could have put something comparable to Apple's Face ID on the front for all intents and purposes. But they spent so much money in marketing, making fun of the notch, making fun of how the notch cuts into content.
Doesn't the notch cover up some of the screen if you watch a movie?
Making fun of people who get notch haircuts, which isn't a thing. All of that stuff got put into a marketing campaign that then put out this mentality to their fan base of,
yeah, notches are stupid. Well, yeah, we're not going to do that.
And as a result, the engineering team had to remove iris scanning, completely get rid of any sort of reliable Face ID, and completely not even consider a notch as a design possibility because of all of that. So that's my first issue with Samsung. And this does, at the end, all tie together into my kind of main group of issues with the Galaxy Fold, but stick around, we'll get to that in a minute. My second issue with Samsung is something that is very clearly on display with the Galaxy Fold. This is not the first time Samsung has put innovative design for the sake of innovation ahead of thorough and complete design for the sake of the end user experience. I know I don't need to bring up the Note 7, but I will anyway because it's a perfect example. Samsung comes out with the Note 7. It's a sleek, big phone. It's not a huge, thick phone, but it's a very sleek design with a big screen. It looks fairly futuristic for what was common at the time, and they put a massive battery in it. Huge! And they did it basically for the sake of having a giant battery in there. And yes, for battery life obviously is one of the benefits, but they wanted amazing battery life. And they did kind of get that, until you realize that the casing was not really designed to house a battery that big, and batteries do tend to expand and contract with heat and cold, and then the phone started catching on fire. They didn't really consider the end user experience in the long run because they wanted to fit something in there that was so innovative and so ahead that it was just ahead. Like, no concern to the end user in that regard. Now, some people may disagree with me. My watch is going off, but some people may disagree with me. I'm okay with that. This is a video to spark a conversation, not a, angry debate. So please do not start angry debates. This is a conversation. Another example is the Galaxy, what was it, the Beam, I think it was? It was one of the first phones that had a projector. I think it was the first phone with a projector built in, if I remember correctly. And nobody bought it because nobody really was asking for that. And it was just weird. The Galaxy Zoom, that was another one that was just innovation for the sake of innovation. Nobody cared that it had a giant camera because the people who did care didn't buy it, and the people who wanted that bought it and realized that it was this chunky phone that had no real, you want to talk about bad camera bumps. Oh my lord, look at this thing. Like, this is huge. This is uncalled for. And it's just innovation for the sake of innovation with no concern to the end user. So, innovating for the sake of being first, innovating for the sake of innovation, and that's it, no end user concern, it's not a good practice, and it's something that I think Samsung's really paying for now with the Galaxy Fold. But it's one of my issues I've had for quite a while with Samsung anyway. Issue number 3 is the fan base. Now, do not get me wrong. People who like Samsung phones, who just enjoy Samsung phones, that's great. I have nothing against a Samsung phone. I think if you were to get an Android phone, it is one of the best options on the market because you are getting a ton of flagship features at a fairly reasonable price for what they end up, coming with. And if you're not an iPhone person, the Galaxy is literally going to be the next phone in line for my recommendation. That's it. That's period. I'm not talking about Samsung buyers and the casual user, and even the power user for Samsung who has a specific set of features that they use it for. I am talking about the fanboy, the sheep, if you will. Now, I've been called an Apple sheep. I'm okay with that because I am comfortable with what I use. I have my use cases for every product I own. All of those use cases happen to line up with Apple products. And the same thing applies with general Samsung users. Their use cases may just align perfectly with an Android experience, and they want the Samsung features. That's fine. But when you get people who are going out of the way, when all of these issues arose with the Samsung Fold breaking and the screen protector peeling off, and you've got these Samsung fanboys, just the worst of the Samsung fan base, and they're the worst of any fan base, but the worst of the Samsung fan base, hopping to this thing's defense and going,
Oh, it's user error. You're not supposed to peel that off. You should never have peeled that off.
even though the thing on the front looks like a screen protector and people were peeling it off and realizing that it wasn't a screen protector, yeah, that's a bit of a problem. That's a big problem. That goes back to my innovation for the sake of innovation's sake. Like, that is not good. But people are hopping on board saying, oh no, it's the user's fault. Like, Samsung, this isn't Samsung's problem. Besides, you should know better. You're buying a first generation product. You're a beta tester is basically what they're saying. But let me throw it in a scenario out here real quick. Let's think back to about 5 years ago, okay? Let's think back that far. A phone came out that had a revolutionary antenna technology where they built the antenna into the frame of the phone. It's amazing. It's a structural part of the phone, but it also allows for the antennas to be on the outside where they can get better radio reception, and they are a structural part of the phone. It's durable, but also very innovative and very good for signal strength. But issues start arising where when somebody's holding the phone in this like palm and whole phone, like covering the phone, they start having signal issues. And everybody tears this apart and starts this giant witch hunt over, oh my lord, this is the worst thing to ever happen. This is a gate. This is where the tech gates come from. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, this is the iPhone 4's antenna gate issue. This was where essentially the iPhone 4's structural frame was made out of the antenna of the device. And it was very innovative at the time. Nobody was doing this. They were still wrapping the phone in plastic and then letting the radios pass through the plastic. And when people were gripping the phone, like, I kid you not, videos of people like gripping the phone like this, shut up Siri, like gripping the phone like this, like covering as much of the antenna as possible. When people started doing that and realizing the signal was dropping, all hell broke loose. And Steve Jobs gets on stage, as he did, and he said this is a user problem. This is a user error. But they still offered a case at the end of the day, so that is nice. But he goes up on stage and says this is a user error. And people lost their because they're saying, this is not a user error, you designed this poorly, this is a poor design, you should have never done this. Now cut to 2019, and people are peeling off what looks like a screen protector off of their $2,000 folding phone, and they're peeling it off with just their fingernail, just like you peel off any other screen protector, and it's a structural part of the phone. It's an integral piece of the display, and their phones are breaking. Like, breaking. The phones can't be used anymore. At least with Antenna Gate, all you had to do is not hold your phone like you were the Hulk, and the antennas would work fine. And I mean, heck, those were even fixed with a bumper case, so that way you could Hulk hold it and it would be fine. In this instance, though, you are actually breaking the phone. It is broken. It is not usable anymore. You have to go spend another $2,000, and people are saying, oh, that's a user issue. Excuse me? I spent $2,000 on a folding phone because I wanted to invest in what I think, I don't personally think this, but what I think is the future. I think that folding phones have their use, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's in phones yet or at all. But people buy this $2,000 phone to invest in what they think is the future, and they're breaking it because they're peeling off something that looks like a cheap screen protector, and it's an integral piece of the display. Okay, that's a big deal. But the Samsung fanboy hops on and says, that's a user error. That's the user's fault. That's not Samsung's fault. You should know better. You shouldn't peel that off even though it's collecting lint and peeling off at the corners. You shouldn't do that. That's your own problem. And if I think about it from a warranty standpoint, most warranties don't cover user damage from the factory. Like, you have to buy an extended warranty to actually cover user damage. You, by default, don't have that. You have defective damage from like a 1-year standpoint from most companies. So if people are buying this phone and going, nah, I spent $2,000 on this phone, I don't want to get a warranty. Oh my God, they're screwed, because if they peel that off, their phone's broken, and Samsung's just going to say, oh, that's your problem, you broke it. But the Samsung fanboy hops on and just says that. At least with the iPhone 4, like, all I had to do was not Hulk hold it, and the phone would go back to functioning normally. It's not like I would hold the phone and cover the antennas and the signal would go away and then the screen would go black and the phone was broken for the rest of eternity. So that is another issue I have with Samsung, is not really the products. Again, I have no problem with a lot of their products, but you get this defensive group of people who don't accept the fact that there might be other people who just want to use a different product than them. They just want to use an Apple phone or a Google phone or a Motorola or Windows. Oh no, Windows Phone is dead, never mind. But you just get this group of users, and yes, there are groups like that on the Google side, on the Apple side. I don't know if there's one on the Motorola side. The Windows side, when we're talking computers, there are always those people who are like that. But especially when issues come about that are fairly significant issues on the Samsung side of things, they hop to its defense, which Apple users will do that as well. But when something happens on the other side of the fence with Apple or with Google, these same fans tear that user base apart, and just any little detail that happens to be like a minor issue. ChargeGate, remember that on the iPhone XS Max? ChargeGate was basically where there was a software bug where you'd plug your phone in and it wouldn't charge, but then as soon as you woke it up or picked it up, it would start charging. It was an issue where if the screen was asleep, it wouldn't charge, and Apple fixed it in like a week. But for that week leading up to that fix, this was something that warranted a recall to these users. And that's where I have that sort of issue of hypocrisy. And that leads me nicely into the fourth issue that I have with Samsung. They have no issue unironically accepting certain hypocrisies with their design versus their message. Let me explain this as well. The Ingenious ad goes into great lengths to explain how the Galaxies are better by having expandable storage, because these idiotic users are going into Apple stores going, I don't know where the SD card slot is on my phone. Yeah, of course you don't. It's not on an iPhone. That's how it's been since 2007. But the Galaxy can do that.
Why would I ever want to do that, though?
The Galaxy S9, I think, was what was out at the time, can do that. Okay, cool. Get a Galaxy if you want expandable storage. Then you have users coming into an Apple store going, I want to use an iPhone, but I want to continue to use my headphone jacks. And he says, well, you got to use a dongle or a double dongle if you want to charge it. Oh, double dongle sounds weird. Okay, fine. You know what? You want a headphone jack? Buy a Galaxy. Even the S10 still has a headphone jack. So, I mean, credit where it's due, still has a headphone jack. That's cool. Then you have the Notch haircut guy and the Notch haircut family, and they are like the prominent I don't know what the word would be, mascot, I guess, something. They are the prominent figures in some of these ads showing off like, they got a notch, the notch is stupid, which again leads to what I said earlier with the engineering team not talking with the marketing team. So, now they have to do a camera cutout. But fine, you know what? They didn't do a notch, they did a camera cutout. Still an intrusion, but whatever, who cares? So get a Galaxy. You don't have to worry about a notch. You get a camera cutout, or you just buy the S9 and it doesn't have any of that. It's just a top and a bottom bezel. Cool. And lastly, the price. Oh boy, they talk about the price like it's a huge deal. Galaxies have a great deal. We have an inexpensive version of the phone. Isn't spending $1,000 or $1,100 on a phone stupid? Oh my lord, even though most people put their phones on a payment plan so they can pay it out over 2 years and own the phone by the end anyway and not drop $1,000 right off the bat. But hey, that's not what I'm here to rant about. But anyway, all those things they complained about, and in one fell swoop, they excuse all of those things being put into one of their phones because it folds. That's it. We made a foldable phone. Oh my god, it's the future. You made a phone that folds in half. This is amazing. Yes, that is true. It folds, and it folds in half just like you would want a concept foldable phone to fold, except it doesn't have expandable storage. It's $2,000. Also, there's no headphone jack. And by the way, it's got a notch on the tablet side. But all of those things, all of those issues, having a notch, no expandable storage, getting rid of the headphone jack, and charging $2,000 for those luxuries is all excused because it folds in half, and it can't even do that right. That's my kind of fourth issue with Samsung, is they unironically accept certain hypocrisies with their designs and their marketing that nobody else seems to really notice, or those who do notice just get kind of shooed away. That's just me. I'm just saying that. Again, I don't want this to be a huge rant. I want this to kind of be very clear. Now, number 5, this is the last one, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying about them doing design for design's sake. The new Galaxy Fold is the first foldable phone to go to market that is something you can buy. At least I think it is, unless the weird thing from CES was purchasable as well. But just because you're first doesn't make you best, and Samsung has never accepted that. Samsung may have been one of the first companies to invest in wireless charging for a mass-produced phone. Yeah, there were other phones that were kind of doing it, but once Samsung did it, it kind of took off in the Android space. They were first to do that. Then Apple comes along and puts it in their phone, and now everybody is buying wireless chargers. This is just, it's everywhere. People buy it, and it's now everywhere, and more users can buy it and use it, and it's just convenient. Samsung was one of the first companies to really exclusively include OLED panels in their phones. Now, leading up to even as recent as the S7, burn-in was still a big issue with those phones. But because they were first, they had to kind of accept and learn from those mistakes and get those things fixed as they developed their phones more and more. Apple was by far nowhere near first when it came to using an OLED panel in their phones. But at Best Buy, there has been an iPhone 10, just the 10, the first one they put an OLED panel in, on display now for almost 3 years. So it was out as soon as the phone came out, and it's been there for almost 2.5 years now, and it's been out that long, and you're just now starting to see some burn-in with the icons. And these are phones that don't run like looping demos. They just sit there on the home screen until somebody picks it up to play with it. And don't even get me started on the Google Pixel, but that's a different thing. That thing burned in like a week. My point is, being first to something, Samsung. I'm talking to Samsung now. Like, I know they're probably not listening, so I'll talk to the Samsung fanboy as well. Being first to something doesn't always mean you're best. In fact, Apple is a perfect example of giving up, literally giving up on something that they were going to try to be first on because it was not something that would be finished. It was innovation for innovation's sake, but they couldn't get it finished and they couldn't get it to work properly, so they stopped. AirPower from Apple was the first wireless charger that was going to let you just drop your phone anywhere, drop your AirPods or your watch or anything, just drop them anywhere on the pad and charge them up. But they had so many heating issues with that product, and they couldn't get it to work properly. They couldn't get it to function. There were so many issues with it that they just stopped. They're like, you know what? We've been leading you by the nose for so long. We're sorry. We can't make this. This is not something that we're going to be able to properly make. Samsung, if they would have done the same thing, at least based on their track record now looking at the Galaxy Fold, they would have made it anyway, and then it would have burned the phones, it would have caught fire on the beds, on the nightstand or something like that, and there would have been no complaints to it or anything. My watch keeps going off. But nobody would have complained about it. They would have said, oh, this is a bit of an issue, but it's fine. It's the first one to ever do this, so whatever. Being first does not mean you are the best. Take your time, innovate, but innovate in a way that the end user gets a product that is actually enjoyable to use for a long period of time. That's also very important. The longer the user can actually use your device, the better off your reputation with those users will be at the end of the day. Now, I hope you guys sat through the end of this because all together, each of these issues is what culminates together into making the Galaxy Fold just not a good product. And it's not something that's going to be fixed within the next year. It's probably going to take another 3 to 4 years before this technology is even feasible. But covering everything I've talked about so far and putting them all to the Galaxy Fold, it is innovation for innovation's sake with no thought or genuine benefit to the end user. It goes completely against the marketing that Samsung had. Their engineering team made this, but the actual, ads make fun of everything that this phone has done, so they've kind of just pointed the gun at their own head. It's the first generation. Cool. It's the first generation, but that doesn't mean that it's the best. In fact, it's really not good at all. And this phone, they're accepting this phone, unironically, for all of the hypocrisy that it shows. It is the most hypocritical designed phone I have ever seen from this company, because not only does it go against everything they've marketed to make fun of Apple for, but they just say, yeah, it does all these things, and we removed all these features that we already made fun of Apple for, but why? It folds. And, of course, now we're having issues with, the long term being first. You're having issues with the long term. We're 48 hours or so in. The phones are breaking. And the Samsung fanboys have had a field day with this phone, jumping to its defense, saying how it's okay, it's a first generation, it's revolutionary technology, it's a folding phone, it's completely fine, it's the user's fault. They've all hopped on this. So all of these things together, I've had these issues for a while with Samsung, but seeing the Galaxy Fold, especially in the state that it's in now, I don't ever hope for technology to break. I don't ever hope for technology to fail. I'm not sitting here, going, ah ha ha, I told you so, tweedling my mustache like an evil villain. It's just, I had some concerns that I brought up in a previous video that I'd never made because this started happening. At the end of the day, I want a product that feels finished. Yeah, the iPhone XS Max is expensive. Yeah, it's not too different from the iPhone X from the previous year, and it's still running iOS, but it feels like a finished product. And yeah, I'm sure it's boring, these glass slab phones, glass and steel sandwiches, but at the end of the day, they work, and I appreciate that technology is being pushed forward with the innovation that Samsung has put into their Galaxy Fold, but technology doesn't move forward unless you critique the problems in the present. And by jumping on the bandwagon of saying, it's a first-generation product, so all these issues are fine, you're not critiquing the phone. You're not calling Samsung out on their shit. You are literally just letting them stew in their own mediocrity of this is good enough, and the phone won't improve as a result. So go out there, critique it, don't be a fanboy, just accept the phone for what it is, accept it for its issues, call it out on its issues, and things will improve. Again, like I said earlier, I personally don't think that folding phones are the future. I think they're the 3D televisions of the 2019s, but that's my opinion. Anyway, guys, that's been my 5 issues I have with Samsung and why it all culminates into the Galaxy Fold as the spark for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know what you all think in the comments. I'm sure this will be a fun comment section to read through. Conversation, guys, not debate or hate. So anyway, guys, I'll see you guys in the next video. Make sure to be there and have a good one.